Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We're at the Reporters Roundtable talking about some of the top stories of the week. And as always, we have some doozies. My guests are Dr. Julianne Malveaux, author and contributing editor for Trice Etnie News Media, and Troy Johnson, who is the evening news anchor for WAPT News in Jackson, Mississippi. Thank you all for joining the conversation.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Harold.
All right.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Harold.
So let's talk about this news of the day. Former President Donald Trump expected to, of course, speak to Black journalists at the National Association of Black Journalists convention in Chicago. There's been a lot of discussion about whether he should or whether he should not. Vice President Kamala Harris will not be there, and now she says that she will talk to the NAB journalists, but after the convention. First and foremost, Dr. Malveaux, your thoughts about having the former president speak to NABJ. Some people are for it, some people are against it. Obviously, people like April Ryan has been, posting videos of the former president's disrespect of her, including Yamiche Alcindor and Ashley Phillips from CNN. All of that notwithstanding, is it a yes or a no for you in referencing the former president speaking to NABJ?
Have these Negroes lost their mind? That's all I have to say. Have these Negroes lost their mind? Number one, he disrespected April publicly. He disrespected Ashley publicly. He has disrespected Black people consistently. He turned down NABJ in 2016. He turned down NABJ in 2020. Why have these Black people decide to invite him again? Now, I got all he has a right. No, he has a right to fucking.
Hey, Doc, come on now. I can't do that.
I apologize. He has a right to blucking disappear. I think that, NABJ, they wrong, they're beyond wrong. I just find it reprehensible, disgusting, disgraceful to have him there. He's disrespected Black journalists through his whole entire career. So why would we offer him any respect? I don't get it.
Troy, your thoughts about that?
Well, I think as a NABJ member, of course, like many other members, kind of shocked that this happened. Also understanding that traditionally NABJ has invited presidential candidates from both sides, specifically those that are going to be presumptive nominees for their parties. What seems to be interesting, though, is if you're going to invite Donald Trump, the Kamala Harris piece seems to be what throws this situation off. I think a lot of members probably would feel more comfortable if you knew both of them were going to be in attendance during the conference. And what seems to be coming out in terms of the tea in relation to why this seems lopsided is that April Ryan and others have reported that the Harris campaign wanted to, because their schedule is jam-packed for obvious reasons, wanted to appear virtually. And the report seems to be that NABJ did not want to make that scenario available. When the Trump situation came in and he confirmed, then they were kind of, what it appears to be reported is that they were scrambling to try to get her back on. And the campaign is like, we've moved on to the other parts of our schedule. They were looking for surrogates, anywhere from President Obama to maybe one of the other primary surrogates for the campaign, and it wasn't gelling. I think that's probably what angered membership, because it seemed like they pursued locking in former President Trump and not really extending the same opportunity to Vice President Kamala Harris. So now they're in a pickle. I don't know.
Oh, they're not in a pickle, bro. What they are is showing who they are. What they're doing is showing who they are. I want to know how much they got paid. I want to know how much they got paid. They got paid to do this, and it's wrong. To call it the pickle makes it like some kind of little conundrum. It's not a conundrum. It's racism from Black people to Black people.
Explain. What do you mean by that, Doc?
I think a lot of people were, what can I say? Were surprised when President Biden stepped away and endorsed the vice president. I think that there are many of us who had issues and challenges, and I think that there are people who are not willing to accommodate themselves. And I think that NABJ was not willing to accommodate themselves. If they were dealing with a level playing field, they would twist themselves up to do whatever they had to get the vice president on the stage. They didn't do that. It's racism because there are, the whole thing, Harold, is toxic. They got 3 women, one from Fox. Come on now. You know, Trump and Fox are like freaking frack. If they're going to have an open conversation, why do you have this chick from Fox? Number 1. Number 2, no Black man. I mean, you, Brother Troy, Roland, Ed Gordon. Come on, let's call the role of Black men who should have been on that panel. You should not have that. And so it's really almost like a soft sell. And when I say racism about racism, it's like they're bending over backwards to coddle this felon, this rapist, this word you wouldn't let me use. Yeah, I'm very
I'm trying to keep my job.
and you praying for me. But anyway, why would you bend over backwards for this putrid piece of white trash?
Well,
there ain't no words that I'm supposed to use. Right, that putrid piece of white. Why would you bend over backwards? That's reverse racism. You want to make it easier for him, but not for the presumptive presidential nominee on the Democratic side?
So I would say this, at least as it relates to Donald Trump. The operative word, and you feel free to disagree with me about this, as it relates to NABJ, is the J. They are journalists. It's the J. Our journalists here. We're Black journalists, but we're Black first, obviously, but we're also journalists. Many of them award-winning, hard-nosed journalists. The men and the women. No soft sell, in my opinion. As far as now, Harris Faulkner, yes, I agree. You know that's a fox of a different color, pun intended. But the other, NABJ journalists there who will be asking questions.
They pick 3 women. Harold, how did they pick 3 women?
I can't speak to that.
Why
But
would they pick a Fox journalist when Fox and Trump are frick and frack?
But here's my point. He is the Republican nominee, no matter what kind of personality he has. And I think that it is important for Donald Trump to speak to the National Association of Black Journalists, specifically because of the persistent disrespect that he has had. And I think that even if Harris Faulkner doesn't, the other journalists, on the stage, they need to hold his feet to the fire, and they need to ask him specifically about that. And
Faulkner's not going to do that, Harold.
As I said, I'm not talking about Harris Faulkner. There were 2 other journalists on that stage, and it is my hope
there will be likely other journalists in the audience. I would imagine
asking questions
from the crowd. They're going to have to live fact check Trump. That's got to happen today. And,
I think NABJ is being played. That's what I think. I think an ABJ is being played. I want to know who got paid. Somebody got paid. I think that, yeah, anyway, you guys have a different opinion, but I'm looking
Yeah,
at this. And
yeah.
I respect both of you very much, my sippy brother. And of course, Harold, I love you to the moon and back. But I'm telling you, this is really ridiculous and it's shameful. It's disgusting. It's disgraceful. It's disrespectful.
But I would also say, as it relates to Vice President Harris, that uh, no surrogate can stand in. Number one. Number two, something should be moved to allow her, even if she can't be there in person, uh, just as the three of us are having this conversation virtually, uh, and they can do it, and I'm sure that any NABJ has access to the same kind of technology that I have, and
Mhm.
I think that whether it's NABJ, the Harris campaign, or both, that needed to try to figure out a way to make this happen. Troy, I'll let you have the last
I was
comment
going to
before we
say
move
that,
on. Yeah.
you know, Donald Trump is going to do what he does. And my expectation is that these qualified journalists will do what they're supposed to do. We have had many conversations with people that that need to be fact checked, that need to have their feet held to the fire. And this is this is example A plus plus. And I think the behind the scene, the situation here looks quite interesting, because a lot of the information on how we arrived at this point is out there in the atmosphere, and they're going to have to make good on what the organization is supposed to be doing in terms of, as you say, providing equal accommodation to the Harris campaign. They're going to have to do that. Period.
Yeah,
There are a lot of members of the organization that it's the reason why I said it's interesting is because there are members who are media members that are a lot more, candid about what they think about this. When most journalists, we're there to ask tough questions. Our opinion is not the main part of this situation. There are definitely concerns about the presentation. What is this? Does this show up as the organization making a endorsement of a candidate? And that's not the case. So, but again, they've got to provide that equal access to right the ship on this situation.
I think there needs to be. I think there needs to be a big sign that just says "Do your job."
Yeah,
because that's what we do when we are in whether we are war correspondents, whether we are covering political conventions, whether we are covering school board meetings,
or running down to City Hall.
Yeah, exactly. We do your job, and you got to chase down the subject with a microphone, with your pad and paper. I'm telling my age, whatever it is. Listen, I need to take a quick break. We are going to continue this conversation in just a bit, but don't forget you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The Original Quiet Storm with John Mons is next on WHUR. I'm Harold Fisher. Stand by. This conversation continues in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We are at the Reporters Roundtable talking about some of the top stories of the week. My guests are Dr. Julianne Malveaux, author and contributing editor of the Trice Edney News Media, and Troy Johnson, evening news anchor with WAPT News in Jackson, Mississippi. You all may remember that Troy Johnson was a member of the WHUR news team, and we certainly thank him for coming back home for just a moment or so.
Good to be home.
Always good to be home. I do want to move on to some other campaign news. And, the reporting is that Vice President Kamala Harris will be picking her vice presidential candidate, the person, her running mate, in just a few days, even as soon as perhaps before the end of the week. Now, we know that there have been some who have dropped out. We've also seen the stock of some others, like Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who has kind of risen a bit. Pete Buttigieg, of course, and others, and I will say Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. Troy, I'll start with you. Which horse are you betting on?
My initial pick, when the announcement was made that she was going to be the presumptive nominee, or the President Biden, said that this should be the candidate, was Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, who still is in that top rung of potential vice presidential picks. But I kind of feel like Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania might be the dark horse. That's just such an important state. The likability there is off the meter. It's kind of those two. But then I have to say, I guess my third in there would have to be Pete Buttigieg. I think very intelligent brother that could add a lot to the campaign. All of these, the win-win for the Harris campaign is all of these people, whether they're selected or not, it's quite a deep bench of surrogates for this 90 days that we have in this campaign. They're doing this at light speed, like we're in the UK. You think a 16-week name to be Prime Minister of England. I mean, this is as short as it gets. There's a lot of enthusiasm. The rally that Harris had in Atlanta had more than 10,000 people. She's raised over $200 million plus in 1 week. I mean, it's certainly a honeymoon period. There's going to be a pendulum that swings back and forth, but it seems impressive at this point. Those are the three picks that I have right now.
Dr. Malvo, what do you say?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about DEI. DEI says definitely earned it. If you look at her record, she has gained votes across the state of California. When she first ran for AG, people said she couldn't get it. When she ran for Senate, people said she couldn't get it. She got it. She came up against Loretta Sanchez. People thought the Latino community was going to take her over the top. Kamala whipped her hind parts. Hey, man, Harold, I can't use no language on your show.
No, you can't. No. This is a family show. We are here to educate, to edify, and to inspire.
I do all that with a little spice.
Yeah, with a little spice,
Not too much.
There. So,
like the color of your hair, the color of smoked paprika. But
anyway, DEI definitely earned it. So she's time enough for all of them. She's going to be the target. The VP's job is going to be to bring her over the hump. In other words, whether it's I'm not in love with Shapiro. He was just reelected. We don't need to lose a Democratic governor. I was looking at Roy Cooper from North Carolina until
he dropped out. Yeah.
No. He didn't drop out. If he left to that crazy black man.
Well, yeah. He's out of the running. Let me say.
Yeah. No. He looked at the tea leaves and said that crazy black man was not going to be the governor of North Carolina. So, it depends on where you think she has the most need. It's going to be a white boy. It has to be a white boy. Just like with President Obama, you got to find you a white boy. Is it going to be the Minnesota governor, who's very good? Is it going to be Shapiro Is it gonna, and we can't go to Gretchen because two women on the ticket would make white men go totally crazy if they weren't already. I think it's gonna boil down the um, not to the how I got over, but to the personal compatibility. I think at the end of the day, she's gonna have to find someone that she can get along with, that gets along with her, that respects her. For a white man, quite frankly, being subordinate to a black woman is challenging. It's just challenging.
Yeah.
So she's gonna have to find the one who's okay with that. And of course, being the number two and the most powerful nation in the United States is nothing to sniffle at. But if you don't respect black people and black women, it's going to be difficult. So I don't think it's going to come down to what state it is and whether or not the state has enough. I think it's going to come down to how she feels about the person. And so that's the challenge, is because it's such a truncated amount of time. When President Biden chose her, he knew her. He knew
Yeah.
her for his son, through his son. He knew her. So he felt comfortable with her. Who is she going to feel comfortable with? And we have no intelligence about that at all.
Yeah, I will say now, outside of the whole president, vice president thing, and I can't speak for white men, I don't know, and and I won't even speak, for you, Troy, but having had women bosses, supervisors, and to be quite honest, were big contributors to my own success. Yeah, I don't have a problem working with them in a subordinate capacity. And on a personal note, in the closer relationships, baby, what you want, it's not what you need me to do.
Right.
you need me to cut the grass, I'll cut the grass.
Okay, I got some grass over here, Harold.
Yeah, we're not doing that because that's why. Look, I'm at the point in life where I pay people to do that now. Don't do that anymore. But last week, I had an opportunity to interview a Democratic strategist, and he said something to me that was really thought-provoking. This is, again, not playing checkers, but chess. He was saying that he thought Mark Kelly was a really, really good pick in Arizona, but considering how politically volatile Arizona is, to lose that Senate seat would be politically dangerous for the Democrats, because you've got an independent and you've got a Mark Kelly who is wildly popular and who has an incredible intellectual pedigree. I mean, the guy's an astronaut. You don't get any higher than that. And of course, his wife, the victim of gun violence, Gifford, exactly, Gabby Giffords, and so if he were anywhere else, but so.
No, but you know what? She can't pick him for another reason. He has been on record as being squishy on labor issues. And the unions are going to be looking very closely at her. They've already poured money in. They're going to pour more money in. But he's squishy on labor issues, and that becomes a problem. So I think she's down to Shapiro, Pennsylvania, the other one, Minnesota. I think she's down to those. Buttigieg is not happening. White men are already going to be holding their nose to vote for a woman. Then they gonna have a gay brother on there?
And I think let's talk about that for just a moment, because let's be honest about this. There is still a whole lot of homophobia out there.
Yeah.
Not just with white men, but in the Black community. And that can be problem. That would be very, very problematic. It is still, Troy, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but there is still going to be a huge block of voters, men and women, who are not ready for a woman president, no matter what her color happens to be. We saw that with Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely true. I have to say, though, it would be fascinating to see Pete Buttigieg and J.D. Vance in that debate. After
Oh
those
wow!
conversations, like that's a pay-per-view episode. I think, and it actually could advance an interesting conversation about where we're going to go in the United States. But again, you're right. There are a lot of trepidations that people have about
No, you know what? I was looking at my phone because
Well, hold on. Go ahead, Troy. Finish your point real quick.
No, that's kind of my point. It's just interesting that people, we live in a country where people are slow to warm to a woman being president of the United States, and we're in the 21st century, and we've already had 46 other presidents, and many other nations have had women lead their countries. So we're certainly behind the times in terms of moving forward here in America.
Dr. Malveaux, you were going to say?
I was just looking at my phone because I got a text from my words I can't use this morning from my brother, who basically used the F word and said, I don't believe she's going to pick a F, and then
see, and
my brother is unwell, so I don't consider him, but he's a street brother who owns a construction company. He has, he's like, I can't believe they're thinking about picking an F.
Yeah.
And
but see, and let me say this about that, and this is a broader issue. We could have a completely different show, about that. But when we are talking to each other in the Black community, and we are using derogatory terms, I think those are the teachable moments.
Mm-hmm.
Those are no matter the age of the person that you're speaking to. Right. Where and I've even had that conversation at another part of my life where a relative used a slur to talk about Asians, and it was casual, and I had to stop them and to say, so let's after I got my head straight from the whip around, when I heard the derogatory term, that I said, that's the same as them calling us the N-word, and you would not accept that. And so I think that in the case of your brother or any person in any of our circles, that these are the teachable moments that will continue to help elevate us as a people. And
Harold, I love you dearly. My brother's unteachable. He's just unteachable. I just send back a note saying, don't use that language with me, and you're wrong. But I don't think that Buttigieg is going to add. What we have to look at is who adds to the ticket, and what do they add to the ticket. And he doesn't add much to the ticket. He doesn't have a constituency. He came from a small town in South Bend, Indiana, I believe. So he doesn't have a constituency. Shapiro has a constituency. Watts has a constituency. What we're looking at is someone who adds to the ticket. And so speculation, it would be great. Buttigieg is a smart guy. I really like him. I met him through Reverend Jackson years ago when he was running for president. He's a smart dude. There are a lot of smart dudes out there, but what do they add to the ticket, and how do they meld with Vice President Harris?
Final thought about that, Troy?
That's a great point. It's what do you add? And this kind of overarching just brings me back to the chess pieces on the board. Many people are concerned about Governor Shapiro because he's Jewish. So there are a lot of people in different categories that Americans have had trouble accepting. You know, we've talked about a gay man, we've talked about a Jewish man, and a woman. And then along with that, you have the potential, as you mentioned, the potential of losing a senator at a time when you're going to need all the votes in a potential administration in the future. You need a governor in place. You know, I heard Gretchen Whitmer talking about that yesterday, saying that I need to be governor of Michigan right now to get Michigan in the blue wall as she tries to get those electoral votes. So it's going to be an interesting decision that needs to be made at short haste. So I don't envy the vetting process that they have ahead of them.
Yeah, and what about that? You know, obviously we've seen with JD Vance all of the discussions about buyer's remorse for the Republicans because of the things that he said that you've now had. I mean, even, you know, former President Trump has had to try to defend the things that he said about childless couples, women, you know, and that, and so
what's the old adage when you talk about politics? If you're explaining, you're not winning.
yeah.
And it was fascinating to see Donald Trump have to defend his vice presidential pick. I don't feel like he would have done that with Mike Pence back in 2016. You know, so this feels like there's a lot of momentum for the Harris campaign. I think Donald Trump appears to be on the ropes. I'm not saying it's a done deal, that it's over with, but it feels like he's on the ropes. Why is he talking about not debating Vice President Harris, kind of tipping back out of the possibility of doing that? It's just a weird moment right now, and they're going to have to do everything that they can to try to define who Vice President Kamala Harris is. Will they be able to do that? And then my favorite two words in these political seasons, those two words everybody loves: October surprise.
Yeah. Oh,
we gotta have some October surprises too, right? So this is going to be a whirlwind 3 months.
Thank you for reminding me about the possibility of an October surprise, and that way I'll know that there could be other things in my trick or treat basket beyond Snickers and gummy bears.
Will it be a treat or a trick?
Hey, there you go. I do want to move on to a local issue, Troy, and we've lost Dr. Malvo. When she comes back, we'll bring her back in. But this is, I think this is really important. And before, this was an issue, obviously, when you were here before you moved to WAPT TV in Jackson, Mississippi, the high cost of housing in the District of Columbia. You were a resident of DC. You know how expensive it was to live in DC. But now we've got two things happening. The mayor Muriel Bowser, she had set a goal of 36 new affordable homes back in 2019.
36,000.
36,000 new homes affordable. And she says that the goal was set to be achieved by 2025. This week she says it has been surpassed. Okay. But here's the other thing, and this happened approximately 3 weeks ago, is that she also had a press conference at the New L Apartments, which is a conversion of an office building into luxury apartments in downtown DC. Now, here's the thing. They start at just under $3,000 $6,000 a month, about $2,885,
Mm.
all the way up to more than $6,000 a month to rent. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but do we see there is an irony here about affordable apartments on one hand and also developing housing that costs as much, as she said on my show years ago, that landlords will charge as much as the market will bear.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about. People are building properties to earn profit. And there were many cranes along the DC skyline when I was a resident in Washington, DC. I would imagine that there are many still around.
They're still there.
2,800 is housing. Affordable, it is not. Affordable, it is not. And I mean, $6,000, to be a person who could sneeze at $6,000 a month for rent.
That's I know that's a mortgage.
Exactly.
It's more than a mortgage. It's
Mm-hmm.
more than a mortgage. I mean, the rule of thumb is that your rent should be about a third of your take-home pay.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's $6,000, that means you've taken home $18,000 a month. Do the math.
If you got to spend it, I guess.
The median income for Black people is about 60 grand a year.
Mm-hmm.
So you do that. A third of that is $5,000 a month. A third of that 5,000 is $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about taking people totally out of the mix in terms of the math. And President Biden has said he wants to cap rent increases at 5% a year. There's a question about whether that's legal or not, but that's what he's putting out there. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, it's not just capping the rent, it's creating the affordability. I'm a native San Franciscan.
Whoa.
And the mayor right now is in a fight for her life. And part of it is that she's looking at vacant land and how we could build affordable housing on vacant land. One of her opponents, this person, I'm trying to keep it clean, Harold. I'm always trying to keep it clean.
Thank you.
Always work. But we call him Pesky. His last name is Peskin. He's a NIMBY, not in my backyard. So in his district, there is vacant land, but he doesn't want anything affordable built on it. Mm-hmm. So where do we go? There's city-owned land all over San Francisco, like DC, like New York, like every place else. That's where we should be building affordable housing. But many of the NIMBYs and others don't want poor people in their neighborhood. And so and not even poor people, moderate income people. So $6,000 a month is out of the reach of like 99% of the population. But $2,000, $3,000 a month is affordable for many people. Why can't we do that?
Yeah, and that's and as I said,
will to do that.
Yeah, there really does have to be the political will, and let's be honest, the DMV is a place where people want to live or have to live,
right.
Even those who are well paid, because they may be connected to the political infrastructure.
Right.
But but as I always say, look, I got a good job, and I can't afford $3,000 a month to rent.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many other things that are connected to that living in the District of Columbia. Can you afford to get in it? Yes, but can you afford to stay in it?
Well, that's my life right now. I mean, I own a townhouse on 14th and Q.
You're being modest. I've seen it. It's huge and beautiful.
Thank you. I love my house, but I don't know how long I can afford to stay here. Frankly, I don't. My mortgage. I don't earn 3 times my mortgage, and I'm old, cutely old, but old nonetheless. which means, ain't nobody trying to hire me to do anything, which is an issue. And but yeah, I'm gonna hang on as long as I can. And I'm gonna tell you what, when I sell, trust and believe, I'm gonna sell to Black people because because when I moved on this block, it was about a third Black. Now there are 3 Black people who own on this block, and it's gentrification and caucasity. I live next door to a brother who I adore. He's wonderful, but on the other side, I have these Caucasians who don't know how to act. I'm using my language, Harold, very carefully. They do not know how to act.
Well behaved, yes. Teachable moment.
Every now and then, I want a gold star when I get off of this program. I want a gold star, and you owe me a drink.
Not a drink, but a drank. And maybe one of those teas that they have in Mississippi named after the WAPT news anchor.
I love the fact that the brother has a tea named after. But the point is, when you listen, if you read Project 2025, which the Orange Man says is not his, but it is. It's almost like trying to push our people out to the suburbs. We will become a service class, but not a living class. And we have to think about that. We have to think about the long run of what people are talking about in terms of how we're going to live. And when we talk about that, we're really talking about the dangers, not only of Trump, because let's be clear, this man goes where the wind goes. We can't blame everything on him. There are more than 50 authors who contributed to Project 2025. They are the baseline of the Republican Party. They don't like Black people. They don't want us here. They want to erase us, to the point that I was with a young lady Sunday night. Her dad was kind enough to help me. I had too much luggage to hook me up. And he and I were talking, and she said, "Who's Jesse Jackson?" And we were talking about politics. And the little girl did not know. She's 14. We've erased so many Black people from our consciousness. If you know Abraham Lincoln, you ought to know Jesse Jackson. But the erasure is real, and it's clear, and it basically is imperiling our people, but also our history.
I need to end it there. There's so many other topics that I wanted to try to get into, but I let this organic conversation continue to grow and grow. Troy, looking forward to hearing your thoughts about what happens at NABJ this week. And if you can send me some kind of way, you can send me one of those WAPT TVTs,
I can get you a powder. When you're ready.
So you become the Arnold Palmer, as they say here, of Jackson.
I got you.
All right, look.
I mean, I got roots in Biloxi and in Moss Point, Mississippi, where I was sent when they put me out of so many schools in San Francisco. They sent me to Moss Point. That didn't turn out well. So I'm a high school put out. Because I never went to, I've never finished. I just went straight to college. But I've
got to go. I'm out of time.
You said I talk too much. Okay, Harold.
Gotta go. The show is over. Dr. Malveaux, Troy Johnson, always great to have you. And again, like I said, looking for the tea from Troy. There you go. Thank you so much. That is the Daily Drum for this Wednesday, July 31st. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.